Hello everybody and welcome to the continuation of this tutorial. Anyway, today we're gonna do the actual cracking of the captured file, which is basically a follow-up tutorial on the previous one. Make sure you watch these in a proper order as they are usually tied to one another. Anyway, we have aircrack-ng. So I'm just gonna go ahead and type that in. Aircrack-ng. Anyway, we need dash W for a password or a word list that we're going to use, either password or word list. Anyway, now you can find these online and download them, and I've seen some pretty good ones. So it's 48 gigabytes, something like that. However, you need to keep certain things in mind. First of all, the region where you're doing this. So for example, if you're doing this in the US or Canada or English-speaking areas, you will be able to find some relatively good word lists that you can use, and they will most likely be able to help you out. However, if you are in a region such as mine, where people mainly speak Slavic languages, those word lists are not going to help you very much. Or if you're, for example, in Russia or perhaps in France or something of a kind, there are specified word lists for language areas, but more often than not, they don't tend to work. As I said, if you are in an English-speaking region, try it out with word lists. There is a good chance that it will be a successful run, primarily because people do tend to either repeat passwords or they tend to use fairly similar ones. So the likelihood of the password being in the word list is pretty high. Brute forcing method, again, what I just said is not called a brute forcing method. What I just explained is called a dictionary attack. So you literally take a dictionary from somewhere, you type it in here, you type the name of the file here after download, and then you pass it to aircrack-ng, and then you start cracking, which is a fairly difficult process to do, but over a certain period of time, especially if it's a dictionary, it will practically finish trying all the possible combinations within the dictionary, all the listed combinations within the dictionary in a reasonable amount of time. So it might take a day or two or something like that. But again, if you're sitting next to a Wi-Fi, you can spread this attack out. Uh, you don't actually need to spread it out or anything like that. Perhaps you need to spread it out for the capture option or something like that, but for the air crack option, once you're cracking the password, it doesn't matter. You can literally sit in your house without any sort of internet connection or whatsoever. If you have a capture file with you, then that's the end of it. You will be able to do it in your house without any concern or worrying about overloading the network or something of a kind, because this process is not conducted over network. This is conducted on your local machine on a file. This is very important. It is completely different from an online attack or something of a kind where you have a billion limitations. However, as I said, I'm in a region where word lists are not very useful, and therefore I'm going to do a very different thing here. I'm going to say dash W for a file to be read in, but I will also tell it to read in from standard output. And now I do need to specify the actual capture file, so scan test.cap. Let's just expand this to full screen. Excellent. So I have scan test -01.cap, and the final thing that I need to put in is the ESSID, which is something. And now in front of it all, I have showed you in the previous tutorial a bit about crunch. I've mentioned it a few times, so I'm just going to use crunch. Excellent. Space. And now I need to pass it a list of arguments. Now, when you start doing this, you want to have an idea of what the password might be. You want to take a look around, maybe specifically a coffee shop. Maybe it will be a name or something like that of the place. Maybe it will have some sort of characters of the name in it, so you make sure to include them or something of a kind. Uh, if it's a company, try the names of the offices, try the name of the company. Uh, try the names of the different departments and so on in combination with numbers, and you might think, oh well, who cares? Why don't I just tell it to do all possible combinations? Because it would take you about 1 billion years, quite literally. Regardless of what sort of hardware you have, it would take you like 1 billion years. You would basically need to have a full power of, I don't know, let's combine Amazon and Google cloud hosting services all together, and still it would take you a very long amount of time in order to crack a password because there are literally that many combinations. So you might want to do some scouting, and it also helps if you know the length of the password. So if you see somebody typing in the password, and this is not just for wireless cracking, this is for any kind of brute forcing or dictionary attacks. If you are there, if you are in the environment, or if you can access the environment physically, uh, as I think I mentioned in one of my first tutorials, but I'm not sure about it. Uh, Somebody during one of my classes, he actually managed to see the length of the password that the professor was typing in, because while she was typing it in, it was being projected onto a projector. Her screen was being projected through the projector, and everybody could see it. Of course, nobody could see the password, but hey, he thought to himself, well, I at least have the length now. And then he passed a few times by her while she was typing it in. He obviously couldn't see all that she was typing in, but the password was like 6 or 8 characters in length, and he managed to figure out that out of 6 or 8 characters, he managed to figure out 3 or 4, something like that. He didn't know their exact positions, but in the string, but he knew that they were one after another. And that is what I would highly recommend. Otherwise, this will take forever. So for example, I know the password of my wireless router and I know the length. That's why I'm gonna give you this option, so dash F. And with dash F, you can actually specify what sort of characters will be assigned to which positions. So for example, I would strongly advise looking at the man pages of Crunch. Let me just show you. Clear and man Crunch. Excellent. So we have a man page for Crunch, and you have these arguments and so on and so forth. And if we go down below, okay, yeah, this is fpath char set, or which we might actually use as well. I've showed you that, but we'll see whether that is convenient for our purpose. Anyway, I'm just trying to find it. It should be around here somewhere. In the examples down below, this is definitely something that you should take a look, because there's practically an infinite amount of combinations that you can use. Excellent. So here we go. This is what. Sorry, it's not dash F. It's dash T. Excellent. So look at what he has done here. All these symbols present certain types of characters. So for example, the @ sign, I do believe that it presents lowercase letters, while the exclamation and this hash, I have no idea what they represent at the time being. Percentage is numbers. Caret, I think it's capital letters. I'm not sure about that, but it doesn't really matter. It's completely irrelevant. You don't need to know these things by heart. I don't know them. What I do, I take a look at the man pages and I figure out what is what. So it's not really that difficult. It's dash T option. There we go. Dash T, and here we have our options. So keep in mind that @ is an option, comma is an option, percentage sign is an option, caret sign is an option. And look at what it says. The explanation is practically perfect. Specifies a pattern. An example of a pattern, it says here God, which is, believe it or not, people actually use that in their passwords. It's hilarious, but they do. And he has 2 @ signs at the front and 4 @ signs actually in the back. Uh, Look at what @ sign represents. Will insert lowercase characters. So it will use this word and it will insert lowercase characters in front and behind. If he had placed a comma in there, it would insert uppercase characters. If he had insert a percentage sign somewhere in there, it would insert numbers. And not a caret sign, a percentage sign, and the caret sign is down below, it will insert symbols. That is why it is I mean, you have the option, obviously, and that is why it is very important to acquaint yourselves with the sort of password that you are breaking. You cannot just walk in and break a password, brute force it, without knowing anything about it previously. That's just highly unlikely to happen. I mean, even with the best of machines out there, it will not work as well as you want it to. I mean, I'm running a few virtual machines in the back, so perhaps my CPU usage will be a bit lower, but I've managed to turn everything off and max it out. It was on 1700 passwords per second. I think I could have gotten to 2.2K if I overclocked my processor, but I didn't have a cooler here, so I didn't want to do that. That is a very important aspect of this. You will need to watch the temperature of your processor. I mean, if you're using an Intel Core, it will shut down by default. It will not allow you to it will not allow you to destroy it by overheating it. But look here on the right side, I have a temperature meters, and I don't really have a way of zooming this in, as this is a gadget on the desktop. But you can see these. You can see the not necessarily the Celsius temperature in numbers, rather instead you can see these charts basically, or scales, or however you call them. You will see that the current temperature is like 61 degrees Celsius. When I start working with the brute force aircracks method, when I start using the brute force method with aircrack, it will load the CPU to a ridiculous extent, and you will see how the temperature will just start jumping up. So when you're performing this attack, you might consider actually employing some extra cooling systems in order to basically reduce the temperature of processor, because that will not only decrease the chance of something malfunctioning, but also increase the amount of tries it can do per second. Anyway, without further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and move this a little bit, expand the terminal a bit more as well, and I'm going to say crunch t. I want you to use 4 numbers in front, and I know that the word is thunder, so I'm gonna type it in, and I'm gonna say 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 and 0. Also, I need a pipe. Yep, there we go. A pipe is simply saying whatever goes out of this, pass it to this, and this argument here is saying read from whatever is passed or from standard output. Press enter, and there we go. This is gonna take a while, and this is not gonna work because I am a genius who failed to actually pass the proper length. Uh, Once passing length, and in combination with what we did here, you absolutely need to make sure that it's exactly the same length. So 11, 11, excellent. Press enter, and the scan is in progress. Excellent, there we go. So there we go. Key found in such a ridiculously short amount of time, primarily because I already knew a good portion of it. But let's see what happens now. Let's go ahead and remove this. And if I remember correctly, what was for capital letters? I think it was a comma. Let's just check it out because I'm not all-knowing. And comma will insert uppercase letters. Yes, it will. My memory still serves me well. I will remember to treat my brain with something later. Anyway, I'm gonna say I'm gonna give a T here, and I'm gonna give a UR something. Blah blah blah. Doesn't matter. Press enter, and still the amount of possible combinations is not that large. I just wanted to make sure that you had the opportunity to see the the maximum amount of tries here. Let's just go ahead and close pretty much all of my virtual machines, and once I do that, I will have more CPU time to spare that I can devote to this brute forcing method. Okay, let's just go back here, and as the virtual machines are getting closed and saved, I'm getting more and more attempts here, but this is still pretty low. I remember getting up to 1700. So okay, it found it again within a reasonable amount of time. Let's try passing a passing a character set. So dash F, oops, sorry, dash F, and what does it say with character sets? Wrong terminal. Let's see this one. Uh, dash. It's a lowercase f. Path char set name. Okay, char set lst. Excellent. So remember to give a path if you're doing it in some other folder, but if you're doing it in the folder that I'm doing it where you've installed Crunch, this should be fine. So F and paste char set lst and give me a tab. Nope, it won't help me with that. I need to actually take a look at it myself. So let's just go back to this terminal and oops, this is not going to be very helpful. I need to go ahead and type in cd desktop a crunch, oops, crunch 36, excellent, ls, and we have a char set somewhere around here. I'm pretty sure it's crunch c make file crunch one char set lst. Excellent. So here we go. Let's go type in ls char set lst, and here we have the names, as I stated before, for pretty much all the char sets in existence. We can specify these manually, but it's better to use these char sets as there is a much smaller probability of an actual mistake. So let's use mix alphanumeric space, and this is going to significantly increase the amount of possible combinations. Probably going to take till tomorrow to actually guess it, but oh well. I can pause the tutorial at any time and continue it as well, so no problems there. Press enter, and oops, it's still giving me a relatively small amount of combinations. So primarily because it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 possibilities. If you increase the amount, hold on, I can. If you press Control C to actually stop it, it will go until the final thread, because Linux systems guarantee that all threads will be executed and not their order. So let's just remove this one. Say at, and this one as well at. Press enter. It's 726 gigabytes. Now this will take a significant amount of time. Let's see what else can we actually close in order to increase it. Oh, I know. I know why it's so low, because I am recording at the moment. As I am recording at the moment, that is eating up my memory and CPU time as well. Now I just want to show you something else before I wrap this tutorial up, because I have a feeling I've already breached the allotted time. If you have some sort of temperature meters on your computers, and I guess you do, they're pretty easily downloaded from the net, you will notice that after an hour or something like that, the temperature will begin to rise. The good news is that you can spread this file that you have. I'm gonna interrupt this process now. And the last thread for password is this one. I'm just going to go until it's reached. Excellent. So what you can do here in order to alleviate stress on a single machine and in order to increase your time, you can actually use this command and specify lists of characters. So or you can actually, if you don't know the size, you can do the following. For example, you can tell one machine, okay, I want you to do all the combinations for 9. Of course, then this option would not be possible any longer. You would need to delete this. And another machine could do, for example, 10. Another one could do 11. I do believe that this is something that we did long ago in school, because we all had laptops, and pretty much we wanted to brute force a certain password, but you know, a single laptop doesn't have a lot of processing power, especially not that long ago. Laptops weren't actually amazing, so we actually merged not just a few laptops, but also home desktop computers. We basically merged every single computer that we could have scrapped from anybody that was willing to help us out, and we had about 10 or 20 computers buckled up together, and they were all conducting a brute force attack. They were all generating passwords. So this is something that you can do. You can give different parameters to different computers to execute it on the captured file, because this captured file, it's portable. You can put it pretty much anywhere you want and conduct a brute forcing attack there. Anyway, in the follow-up tutorials, I will show you some other methods, how you can attack wireless access points and what you can do with them, perhaps a little bit of a more effective method in terms of time that requires far less reconnaissance. In any case, I bid you farewell, and I hope to see you in the next tutorial.